you say that here?
Here we go. Here we go, you guys. All right, you guys. Did you hear about this woman that was just awarded $5.2 million from Geico? That
No.
So
No.
this woman in Missouri has sex in a car with some dude, gets a venereal disease, and sues Geico for injuries sustained while she was in the car they insured. And
Stop
why?
it.
I did hear that headline, but I did not hear the details. That is ridiculous.
I mean, come on. And then the judge is like, oh, yeah, well, she sustained injuries in your car. Like, what does this mean? Like, I mean, for God's sake, have protected sex. I mean, premarital sex, Sally, should be its own show with the minister.
No, there's a deeper question on this one. She's from Missouri. Does she have all her teeth?
Oh,
I used to live in that area, so I can ask that question.
Peter, that's so mean. So are you?
You can say that here.
well, I was
Peter
going to say,
opening.
well, you can say that here, and you know, I'm Allison, that's Colleen, but today our guest is Peter Dillon, who's joining us. So that's
Good morning.
You say that because you lived there. You know, no, there was no teeth. I guess.
Whenever there's a news story on, in a storm or an event in Kansas City area, whenever they interview anyone, they never have any teeth.
Oh, that's so not right. So not right. I am moving on to Gay Pride. Happy Gay Pride Month.
Yes,
Or is it Pride Month? We don't say Gay Pride.
It's Pride. Yep.
I am so out of touch, boy.
No, you're not. Colleen's very in touch, actually.
It's kind of interesting. We have all these conversations. You guys know I own Small Business USA, and we help these business owners they're going from zero in DEI to something. That's kind of my role. So I don't have my bar where I have to bring people. It's not like next level stuff. And so I'm pretty excited because Peter, you work in this space where there's some next level conversations going on in corporate America. And I think you can probably help me, help some of my business owners, but also kind of, I think there's a pot to be stirred here a little bit. So I'm excited about today's conversation. So, Peter, I'm going to start off like, yeah, baby. You guys can't see him, but he's stirring the pot. Here we go. All right, Peter, I have to ask this question because I think you guys know I have a brother who died at 39 of lung cancer, but he was gay. And this journey that he had and how he talks about his experiences back then, it was over 15 years ago that he passed. But I believe things have changed, but in some respects, I don't believe they've changed at all. So, Peter, I have to start off by asking this question. As a gay man in America, do you feel safe?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So if you want some of my history, it'll help maybe explain why I feel that way. And
Sure.
Allison knows my past. We went to high school together, but I grew up in the 80s, and I had suspicions back in high school that I was gay, but I had a girlfriend all through high school the entire time. And going back to previous podcasts, I was bullied on a repeated basis every day of my high school career by probably some people who actually subscribe and listen to this podcast. However, I have since moved way past that. It's 35 years ago. Things have changed. People have changed. That part of the world has become very much different from an acceptance of our generation into people who they are born to be rather than who they were back 35 years ago. So I was married to a woman for about 14 years, and I felt totally safe as a heterosexual, walking down the street, holding hands, kissing in public. I do not feel safe with my husband holding hands in public or showing signs of affection. So, do I feel safe? Yes, I generally feel safe, but I don't feel the same um, equality as a straight couple in public. We have to be reserved. We have to kind of, unless we're at a pride event, of course, then it's a totally safe environment. Although we'll get back to that from something I sent you earlier this week, Colleen.
Yeah, definitely want to talk about that.
So generally, yes, I do feel safe. All depends on where I am at the moment. I have lived in different cities, different states. I've traveled around, and it is definitely different around the United States, where you feel safe and protected. I lived in Connecticut previously before moving to Florida. Connecticut is viewed as a very liberal state, democratic. However, I will say that it is not the most open, gay-friendly state, um, even though they claim to be. But that wasn't the necessary feeling I got when I lived there.
And how
Florida,
long ago did you live there? I'm just kind
I
of
moved
curious
away just over
timeline-wise.
2 years ago.
Oh, okay,
I moved 2 years
recently.
ago. Yep, and I lived there for 10 years after living in Kansas City. And it's not that it's not open. There's just pockets. There's pockets of acceptance. There's still a lot of people who live in their homes only. They're not out and open. They're not easy to meet, not easy to do things with. It's kind of a bedroom community. Not a lot going on there because of proximity to New York, although it's, hour and a half away to go do anything in New York. So it's not like it's that easy. But in Florida, I live in a bluer part of the state. Florida is a very red state. And I haven't had any issues since I've lived here, probably because of West Palm Beach and Palm Beach County and Miami County are much more open. I haven't yet traversed to other parts of Florida that I would definitely not feel safe in.
Peter, you have to I have to call out this shirt you're wearing. There's a big hand with a particular finger, just accentuated in the air with and what does it say underneath? DeSantis.
Yes, basically
Yes.
it's fuck
Yeah.
DeSantis.
Yeah. I mean, it is true. I mean, to be in Florida with everything going on, I think it's got to. I perceive or maybe expect that it's a little more challenging. But you're saying based on the county, you're kind of insulated.
At times, yeah. I can honestly tell you that probably every couple of weeks I drive past a Trump rally still.
Yeah,
So
crazy. Well, those
yeah.
hearings are another thing. I like, oh my God, have you guys been watching these hearings?
Of course.
Oh man, like it's amazing. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I don't want to talk about Trump, but just kind of outlining the timeline of things that they're accusing him of are unbelievable. So
Yeah.
that's another conversation. I need you to talk about last week and this in West Palm Beach, this rally. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So there was a Pride event scheduled for last Sunday. Actually, it was supposed to be Saturday, but because we had that torrential rain Friday and Saturday, it got moved to Sunday. And I found out after the fact when my husband shared with me a link to a news story that there was a threat. A 17-year-old was threatening to come to the Pride event and kill people with a gun. It was intercepted by the FBI and Miami police and communicated very rapidly to the West Palm Beach police. They had a presence at the Pride event. We didn't get there till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It started at 1. There was a police presence there, but not unexpected, nothing alarming to me. But apparently there were a ton of undercover cops in the area. And it was just on one block of this one city block. It wasn't like a huge park event. It was just one block and booths and a stage setup for performers. So this person, apparently, according to the news, was arrested in Canada. He wasn't even in West Palm Beach, but he had made threatening allegations to harm people at the Pride event. So that was a little bit alarming because there are a number of scheduled events throughout the month of June for Pride Month. And now I'm going to be going to the one this afternoon with a different lens, a little more openness and a little more awareness of my surroundings, just to make sure that I'm safe. So,
hey, I want to shout out to law enforcement. We talk about these mass shootings, and too often we don't talk about the ones that are prevented. And I know, like, this is a conversation that we've all had together. But man, it's thank God. And I'm so grateful for the police, the FBI, that and the ones that they do stop. So, thankfully nobody was hurt and that was prevented. We were
Yeah.
talking earlier in the
Before you
week.
before you go
Oh,
on, one thing I often do at those types of events that I don't know that people do or don't do, I generally walk by the police and thank them for being there, for protecting us. Just a
Mhm.
simple thank you as you walk by. And I think it means a lot to them to hear that, because I think they feel like they're taking it for granted. And they're actually, they're just standing around. Typically, that's all you see them do, but they are actively engaged, actively looking, they're scanning all the time, they're working. And I don't think that people pay them enough respect or um, give them that level of gratefulness.
I'll tell
If I
you
could
what
just,
oh,
oh,
sorry,
sorry.
Ally.
Well, my dad is a retired detective from a city in Connecticut. My brother is currently a canine officer. So I'm, a child, and I was a reporter of, of all this. So I just want to say to you, to both of you, that I've seen it firsthand. Like, my brother was at a Black Lives Matter rally that I went to with him, and he was working, and they had a picture of a white police officer getting his throat slit by a black man, and people were going up to my brother saying "F you" and throwing stuff at him, and he just stood there and he took it. And I'm not saying which side of the coin I'm on, I'm just saying that I've seen it firsthand, and he just now they tell kids all the time, don't become a police officer now. It's not a good time to become one. The world has changed and they don't respect us. And so I appreciate what you're saying, because I'm very, pro police officer, anyways, I'm all over the place with that.
No, that's okay. I was going to say the same thing when I was Aislinn and I went to a bunch of like BLM
Mm-hmm.
um, rallies and things like that. And that's that first moment, I guess, for me, where I realized, here they are, and we're talking about police brutality, and it was right after the George Floyd incident, and here they are, keeping us safe, organizing the rally, and it was that moment that I was really connected with a lot of the people that were with us in this group were really angry at the police at that moment. And there they were, kind of with their chins up, protecting and making sure that we were safe and able to walk through the streets of different towns and share this message. And it was really remarkable. It is a tough job.
I guess for me, what I learned that day was I was so angry that they treated my brother this way, and they didn't even personally know him. Why would you say F you to him? Why would you throw things at him? You don't even know him. And my very good friend who is Black said to me, that's exactly how we feel. Nobody knows us, and yet they still treat us like this. And I was
Wow.
like,
That's a valid
wow,
point.
you know.
Wow.
So I'm that person, I guess, because I'm a Libra and I don't ever talk about, astrology and stuff because, my faith,
Right.
but I can always see both sides. I can always see both
Well
sides.
balanced.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something you said, Peter, about being bullied. And I, so I had my daughter and her boyfriend, we were having dinner with them last night. I'm like, and both of them go to different high schools. And I'm like, I would really love to kind of talk about this conversation. And my daughter's boyfriend, his brother and sister are both gay and lesbian. And it was interesting. I said, hey, I really would love to pick your brain. Like, what is happening now in the high school? And they were really, really woke when they were
Mhm.
having this conversation. They said, it's his brother and his sister would probably tell you that nothing, like they were treated fairly and equitably in North Jersey, because this is where we live, right? This is a safe place. They have a strong community. My daughter was saying that about 10 to 15% of her class population is, out of a school of 1,400, is identifies as LGBTQ, and which I thought was a tremendous number. And it was like it was no different for her than the wrestling club or volleyball club or whatever. And I thought, wow, this is really impressive. And then they said, yeah, but we live here. And
Mm.
that's why.
And it
So don't fool yourself.
and in this time,
Right.
because Allie, in our high school, I don't think there was one person who was out. So you would have never known that it was possibly 10%.
Right.
But I know at least 10 people from our graduating class who are out now, but may not be out to everyone. So it's still a different stigma, different time, different place. But the environment is different, and so part of the laws that are changing and addressing this, and it might change in the future, is the fact that they have stickers on teachers' walls that say this is a safe space. You know, if you're concerned, you can come talk to this teacher. Well, now all the anti-LGBTQ bills being presented in many states across the country, 230 of them actually, are now saying you can't do that in schools. You have to remove any reference to creating a safe space or having a safe conversation with your teachers, who you spend 6 to 7 hours a day with, longer than you spend time at home with your parents and family. So it might revert. There might be a time when what was safe before is not safe in the future, in my opinion.
And if I could just say, my kids went to an arts magnet school in an inner city that they grew up. So they were very woke. We had Billy come over, and he decided to become Bailey, a female, and he would borrow my daughter's mini skirts and stuff like that. But then when my daughter went to, let's say, a Catholic school, it was different. So I think it depends. Like you and I went to more of a rural high school. You, Peter, and I, and so again, like your daughter's school, it's different because she's in a public school. So I'm saying it depends on what you're saying, the environment, the school that they're in, what's taught at that school, you know, how diverse it is. It all plays into the experiences these children will have.
Yeah, I mean, our school is 18 miles outside of New York City, right? They're very close. It's a very liberal community.
Right.
So I have to go back, Peter, and so tell me about, they used to have the signs and now the signs are not allowed for
That's
the
part of
teachers?
that's what I'm hearing as part of what is being proposed, is that you have to remove any reference or not create that safe space. The teachers have said we're going to see a mass exodus of the teaching population, is my opinion, also because of the laws that they're putting in place, not only related to LGBTQ issues, but also gun safety. But I think that there used to be, like, I could go to my son's high school and see in the corner like a pride flag. So you know this is a safe space. What doesn't mean that the teacher is gay or that any of the students, it's just an acknowledgement of it's accepted here and you're accepted for who you are in this classroom. And I see that going away.
Hey, I think you're wrong about those signs being taken down. I still think they're creating safe places. As I understand it, it's just about conversations in our younger classes, but I think there's still a big movement. Now I have to, like, I wish I had researched this, right?
Yeah.
Because I can't dispute it, but I do think you're wrong on that one. And I hope you're wrong. I pray that you're wrong.
I see these far right congressional, I'm trying to think of the right word to call them, people trying to really just abolish everything that about the LGBTQ community. We've got crazy people out there in power who just don't want to even have the conversation.
I will not. I can't deny that. I do believe that the Republican, there is some parts of this Republican Party who have gotten way,
and the Democratic Party. There's people in the Democratic Party as well.
I guess there's
I know
people
you see it
everywhere.
more,
right?
Right. Because as a parent, they don't want it discussed. If they want to discuss it with their child, they will discuss it. They don't want it in the school system.
Yeah.
We have to,
and
like,
and talking about it is not sex. Yeah, talking about it is not sex. It's not sexualizing children. It's a conversation about life. So it's not sex. They're not having conversations that says, well, if you try this position, you won't get pregnant, but if you do this position, you will. That's not what they're talking about. But that's what it makes it sound like when you hear them talking about they're sexualizing our children. And those conversations don't happen at all. They don't talk about positions. They don't talk about roles. They don't talk about domination. They don't talk about any of the sexualized aspects of the LGBTQ community.
Here's
It's
where
about
we,
love, acceptance, about who you are as a person, who you want to become in the future, and recognizing that if kids tell their parents, sometimes their parents throw them out of the house.
Mhm.
Sometimes their parents disown them. Their parents are not the safest person to talk to about those situations. Whereas all of our legislators believe that those are the conversations that should be happening. Well, you need to start educating parents about how to be parents. That's the
Right.
conversation that needs to be happening.
here is where a few bad apples ruin the applesauce, whatever it is. But no,
It's
but
Make a bad pie.
like you look at lives of TikTok, right? There's teachers on there having the wrong conversations,
Right.
right? And so there's cops out there
There's always, yeah.
abusing people. It's where the few bad apples kind of ruin our, the bigger perspective and message.
But I
out
think
there.
I think the ignorance is, though, that by having the conversation, they think they're fostering a child to become gay, let's say, which is not how it happens.
Right.
You either
Right.
are or you're not. By having that conversation, you're not going to encourage them now to become gay, bisexual, whatever.
Allie, I got to ask you this, and you are going to hate this question. Please love me tomorrow when I ask you this question.
I will, but
today.
am I wrong what I said, Peter? Am I wrong about what I just said about people?
Not at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just
No,
want to
not
be
at all.
clear. Go ahead,
I
Amalia.
agree. No, I agree with you too. But I've been thinking about this conversation, and so you have been, as a minister, this, same-sex marriage kind of goes against this Protestant piece of what you believe. So, but you are amazingly accepting of this is how you're born. If God made you like this, then this is who you are meant to be. And I have to ask you about transgender. What?
Well, go ahead. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, I think that's it. You know where I'm going with it. Like, so God made them a man when they change if they go through a sex change or they identify as a woman, even though God has made them in this image or as a man. What does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, let me say this, and Peter and I, we have a personal story that, years ago when Peter got married, especially as a Christian minister, people were like, you can't go to that wedding because then you're saying that, the sin he's engaging in is okay. And I called Peter up and I said to him, you know what I believe, what the scripture says. If it is indeed a sin, I don't want you a year from now, 10 years from now. Am I right, Peter? I called you up before the wedding, and I don't want you a year from now, 10 years from now, 10 days from now to say, Allison, it was a sin, and you let me get married and blah, 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 and now I'm screwed, and I had an honest conversation with him about that. And the truth is, for me, that I know what the scripture says. It says, man shall not lie with man. He shall only use the natural use of the woman. But my job is, if it is indeed a sin, if it is, okay, which no gay person believes they're sinning. If it is, only God can convict someone's heart that it is or isn't a sin. And if it is a sin, it's no different from any other sin. And at the end of the day, it's not my job to judge, but my job to love. So I would, say to somebody, you search the scriptures, you talk to God. And if God is convicting your heart that it's a sin, well, then get right with God. But for me, again, my job is to love Peter. So I went to the wedding.
And she had a great time like everyone else did.
Oh, best time ever.
And how many years has it been, Peter?
7.
Oh, and so you have 3 more years, like the statute of Allie limitations is you have 3 more years, right?
Well, that conversation will never come up again because I'm very deep in my faith, which is nothing. So I'm not committing a sin because I don't believe in sin at all. So
Right. No, but what's so great that in Peter, and I've used this example before about Peter and I, is that we couldn't be more different all the way down. Pro-life, pro-choice, gay, straight, all the way down, atheist or agnostic Christian. Atheist. And yet we could have lunch and we could be friends at the end. I respect him, he respects me. Yeah. So back to your question about transgender, there are Christians who will say, listen, there's a spirit that comes along, it's Satan, and he wants to confuse the person into thinking that, God made them this way, but Satan is a deceiver and a liar, and he's, telling them, no, 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 and they fall for that. So, there's all these different beliefs, but for me, again, I can't say whether or not a person was born a man and then they feel like, geez, this is all wrong, I really need to become a woman. It's between them and God. I can't say, everything's an individual thing. So for me, I can't say one way or the other. It's between the person and God.
What are your thoughts, Allie, on conversion therapy? Because a lot of churches
Oh
are
no,
doing this.
don't believe it. I do not believe in conversion therapy
Thank you.
whatsoever. No, I think it's abusive. I think in any situation, whatever it is, it's all about prayer and individuality with your higher power, and it's not for me to say or judge. It's my job is, if somebody comes to me though as a minister and says, Allie, do you think it's a sin? What I'll say is, this is what the word says, but you have to come with that, whether or not it's a sin. My opinion doesn't count. The only opinion that counts is between you and your higher power.
So
I
my brother
think,
and I had a really great friend in college who was gay, and they both said the same thing. They said, growing up, you are forced to lie and stay within the shell because you feel like there's this, you don't know what these emotions are, you have nowhere to go with them, and you feel like you have to lie to yourself, lie to others, that there's this piece of fitting in and belonging in your family unit, in society, that you have to connect with until you come out, and that takes a level of bravery to make that happen. And so as we're talking about kind of this social influence and what does that mean at the transgender level and grooming, these are all big conversations going on. Like when right now there's this movie out, What is a Woman, right? And it's really kind of challenging, who is that, and you know are we forcing these children when they're in relation, like when they're brought up in a transgender or with gay parents? Now, I'm going to tell you, I probably should preface this. I'm kind of stirring the pot here. I don't know that I believe this, but there's a conversation out here saying, hey, if a child is brought up by two transgender parents and all of a sudden they're going to the doctor at 12 years old and the parents are asking for puberty blockers for this child because they don't associate with the gender that they were born, I think about these two men who were very influential and in very important parts of my lives, who were saying we felt like we had to lie to fit in. And I'm thinking, are we doing the right thing by allowing a 12-year-old to go on puberty blockers? And
that's
are
a
they a product of their family and trying to belong?
oh, that's a very deep question.
Well, we can say that here,
I
right?
know.
But I
Yeah,
Well,
think,
I
isn't
think,
that
but
what's going on in
yeah.
America right now? They're asking that question. That's what that movie is kind of about.
but I think as a parent, what I've seen just with people who have children who want to change their sex, I think is when that parent sees that child, they believe them and they want to foster whatever that child needs. I
Let
don't
me
know what
ask you, Allie, the parents that you know with children that are struggling with their sexuality, are they heterosexual couples?
yes. Yep.
So
Does it make a difference? I'm talking about, so
Doesn't
like,
make a no,
yeah,
it
I'm
doesn't make a
talking
difference.
about, so my friend, I don't want to say his name, God love him, because I didn't ask for his permission, right? But so we'll call him John. So John grew up with parents that were homophobic. So John lived in a lot, lived in the closet, he would say, until he left home and went to college because he felt it was the right thing to do. So he lived this lie because he wanted to belong. If it was two transgender parents, is there a risk that that child could also be just trying to follow his parents' lead or her parents' lead.
I don't know about that because I have children, and I don't know that my kids are trying to say that they're going to be gay just to fit in with our relationship. You know, we have honest, deep conversations about it all the time. But you know, hey, have you met anyone you're interested in at school? You know, what's her name or what's his name? You know, we just go open the subject, you know, and talk about it. And at one point, my son identified as pansexual. So the going joke in our house was keep him away from the pots and pans drawers. You know, so you know, we try to keep it light, but also informative and let them be who they are. But I don't think they're going to try to fit in just because we're gay. They're going to try to say that they're gay and then
Right.
come out straight 25 years later. I don't think that's. I think that kids today are smarter in that respect about who they are as a person because they have had role models ahead of them that have paved the way for them to help them understand that it's okay if I feel different, and it's okay to express I feel different, and it's okay to say what do I do about this, rather than going back in the closet. They're at least having discussion, and it may or may not end up that they become transgender. They, you know, that this might be something they're exploring. I'm not saying it's a phase, but at least there's conversations happening, and hopefully they're happening with safe people in a safe environment. But I don't know that people are doing it to fit in. And a lot of this, if we circle back, why your children or your daughter's high school is safe and for people to feel like they can be who they are or dress a certain way is because of the pride movement that started 50 years ago, and the people who fought for that right to be who they were and to be recognized in society as valid people. Because prior to that, gay people have been around thousands of years. This is not a new concept.
Right.
But they were criminalized, they were arrested, they were put in prison, they were told that they were less than human. All the same things that, to our earlier conversations, Black people have been put through. And they rose up, they had a movement, and now every month, the month of June, is to celebrate the fact that we made progress. And we want to be recognized for that progress and let people know that it's not over, and we're still continuing to create that safe space for people. And it has evolved into this alphabet soup of people where they're marginalized and now they have a safe environment. Like I can go to a pride event and there can be everyone on the full spectrum there, and it's accepting. Yes, there's going to be people within the community who judge and who don't agree with every aspect of it or don't understand it, because I can't say I completely understand with the transgender mindset because I've never lived in that space. I've never wanted to be a woman. I've never wanted to wear women's clothing, but I have to respect someone who does. I don't have to understand it, but I have to be able to respect them and acknowledge that they are able to be who they are as a person.
You know, it's interesting, as parents, we take this, and I don't mean to call you out, right? But I think that as parents, we get protective and we take this personal affront when we have conversations like this, right? Like I certainly never mean to tell somebody that they're treating their children poorly, or they're not, they can't see the forest through the trees, anything like that. But I do know parents, and I know you guys know parents that are bad. I know that you know parents who are unaccepting. I know that you know parents who think their child is the greatest child on earth, and you see them in other situations and go, oh dear Lord, they have no idea what's going on. So I think, how do we, like, I think some of this conversation is about protecting our children.
Yeah.
And
I see the other. I see the other
Right.
side too, though. I see those parents who are loving, accepting, and would go to the ends of the world for their transgender children
I do
That-
too.
and
that's
I
protecting
do
them.
too. I agree.
That's what I was trying
Can
to
I share
say
an
earlier.
example?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I didn't get permission either, so I'll be very general. But my friend's son graduated college. They attended the college event where they put the names up and they call the names. The son was registered as a male for 4 years of college. They put the previous gender identifying name on the graduating certificate and called it out at the ceremony.
Yeah, that's not
Now,
good.
that I read that and I was appalled and ashamed for that school, because that should never have
Mhm.
happened. And the
Did they
the
legally
graduating
change the
the
name?
graduate yes, the graduating student and the parent handled it with grace and dignity, and of course upsetness. I can't imagine what they might be doing behind the scenes, but they shared it as a and for their community to know that that's not right. It's not right that even when you change legally your name and your gender identity, that someone else that calls you out on it. And I saw the father defend that his son to the end of the world, because
Right.
that's how much they support them.
That's
Allie.
what,
So that's what I'd rather see in this world.
right.
And I'd rather not have a conversation about someone making a movie that says, "What is a woman?" Because I don't think that they deserve any airtime. I don't think anyone should be questioning the fact of who someone is or doesn't want to be, because it has no impact on their life.
Have you,
Whether Allison decides to be Alex or Alejandro next week has no impact on me as a person or my life,
I
because
agree. I
it's
agree.
his or her life that it impacts, and maybe their immediate family and their relationships, but it has no impact on me except to love and cherish and honor Allison as I always have.
We are
And
abs
Allison was one of the first people I came out to.
we are
So
absolutely going to let Allison speak next. I just want to share something
what?
that
I'm good.
we
Good.
keep
I'm listening.
interrupting you, girl. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm good.
Peter shared
what are you
this
saying, Colleen? No. Oh,
Peter shared something with me earlier this week from Equality House, and I love this because it says a friendly reminder that you don't need to fully understand the nuances of gender identity to know that each individual person knows who they are better than you always will.
Mm.
And I think that's so powerful. So, Allie,
No, I just wanted to go back for a minute because, there's a show on TLC. For the life of me, I can't think of the girl's name. And she was a little boy, and they showed throughout her life how she turned into this woman and how her parents went through the process of it. And, there's all this backlash about how the parents should have never encouraged it. And what does a child know at that age, et cetera. And again, as loving parents, we do the best we can at the time. So I don't fault any parents for that. Going back to whether or not parents are gay, will their children be gay? I've never seen that yet. I have seen people go through trauma. I've seen people with mommy issues and daddy issues who end up, having their sexual orientation become gay. But again, does any of this factor into it or not? I have no idea. At the end of the day, like what Peter said, we just have to love and accept them. It's their journey, it's their process, and don't judge the parents. Don't judge the person. Just live and let live.
I am I know that my role today is being an antagonist because I think that but obviously, like, from our very first podcast, right? I am the one that was screaming about this parade, and I like this is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart, and I don't disagree with Peter on much of what he's saying, but I think there's this conversation that we're having on a very national level that I wanted to kind of bring into the fold here. And I think it's why, you guys, you may call me a pedophile on occasion, and it's not
Well,
what
that
it is, but I'm
well,
gonna bring up my boys again.
yeah, no. It's I would never throw that.
you just have an infatuation with young performers and young,
Well,
good-looking
yeah,
No,
people.
I
no,
would
no.
never,
It's
I would never throw that word around. I would never make it. It was just, because Andy says some things like you wouldn't believe that come out. So we jokingly said that. But let me say this for the last thing. The conversation we're having today, and why I'm preaching acceptance and not judging, is because people are taking their lives over this, and I almost can't talk about it without crying. So it's, this is what the bigger picture is all about. We need to love everyone and save their lives, because
Yeah.
people are taking their lives at an alarming rate, especially young people. And we could talk about the Trevor Project, but I'm sorry, Colleen, you were trying to be silly and I got serious.
So no, I'm not trying to be silly here, but I do think, if you guys don't know, if anybody's listened, I love people who are challenging the world and changing the world and making it a better place. I am fascinated by people who will step out, put themselves on the line, be uncomfortable for the greater good. And I do that's, when I say I have a crush on Elon Musk, I think he's out there changing the world, right? And I'm like, it's not because, I love my husband so much, but I look at Harry Styles and David Banda, and I think here are two young men out here changing the world right now. They're wearing dresses, they're wearing nail polish, they are taking a firm stance on not expressing their sexuality. And I think I want this to be the wave of the future where we're not talking about color of skin or sexuality. We're just
Or coming
allowed
out.
to be. Right, exactly.
Mhm.
Jodie Foster, I think, she moved me when people said, "Are you ever going to come out?" And she said, "Why do I need to?"
Mm.
And I think there's this power in my dream is that we live in a world where none of this matters, that we're 100% accepting of different opinions, different lifestyles, different skin colors. I don't, I know that it's very idealistic, but that's why I think I really watch Harry Styles and David Banda, and that, and it changes. Like who knows who it will be next week, but I think but for me, it's this fascination with people who are brave enough to take a stand and say, it shouldn't be gay or straight.
Yeah, but you're right. We don't live in a world where we're accepting all the time. Because, for example, in the workplace, like I don't know if you recognize this, but gay people come out at every interaction that they have. They either choose to tell people that they have a husband or that they're gay, or they don't, right? So I choose to have a picture of my husband on my desk because I want to be my authentic self at work and be able to have a conversation. And at my current work environment and my last 4 work environments, it's been openly and graciously accepted. Um, but not everyone has that capability. Not everyone has the ability to talk about who they go home to at night or who they're interested in or who they're meeting for dinner that night because they can be in fear of losing their job, of losing their home, of not being served at a restaurant, of being denied a hotel room, because those protections are not legally available across this country on a national level. And that's why it's not always a safe place
Right.
to be when you're gay.
Mm.
The
When
laws are
you're
amazing
black,
state
you're
by
black. People
state.
know that you're black, right? But it's no different than a silent disease or an internal disease that no one knows you have. So why do you have a handicap sticker on your car? You look like you're walking just fine. No one knows that they might be suffering from whatever internal disease that just doesn't present itself. But it's not my place to ask. They got that legitimately through the legal process. I might have an aha, like, oh, that they look fine, but you don't know that they're fine. Well, you have to look at everyone through that lens. Like, who are they as a person, and do they have a safe and loving environment to go home to, rather than hating on them for no reason. I am literally, like, not me personally, but I as a gay man am hated by people for legitimately no reason except for that they believe God tells them to hate gay people.
And
Do
that
you
is a lie
feel
from
that?
I just want to say that's a lie. Go ahead, Kyle.
No, go ahead, Allie.
Well, it's just, again, because I know, listen, you're gonna get hated on, Peter. After this, I'm gonna get hated on. Let me tell you.
Bring it.
Let me be clear. Jesus does not hate gay people. Those Westboro Baptists or any Christians who come out and say that gays are going to hell is a lie from the pit of hell.
Yeah.
So I can't stand that. It makes me sick. It gives Christians a bad name. That is not what the scriptures say. It's all about relationship with Jesus Christ.
Did you see that congressman clip?
What, babe?
Did you see that clip from the congressman who gave a speech about what Jesus said about gay people in the Bible?
Oh boy.
Please tell me it was negative. Was it bad or good?
It was 15 seconds of silence.
Why?
Because Jesus didn't say anything about gay people in the Bible, is what he said.
Oh,
I
well,
love
Jesus
It was
did.
on.
I love
It was
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
It was
Jesus
not,
did, but there
look
is
up that
scripture.
clip. Look up that clip. You'll see.
I will.
It was powerful. It was 15 seconds of silence.
No,
And then
Jesus
he
did
walked
not.
away. So
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's people have often said to me, whatever it says in red, what Jesus said is all I believe. But then there are people who believe all of it. You know what I mean? So, but no, I'm sorry to take away from that moment. I understand.
but the other thing that, and Allison, this, I am more afraid to come out as an atheist in this country than I am as a gay person now.
I know that we miss Andy today, and I am so like bummed that we didn't say that earlier. We were hoping that he'd be able to join us a little bit late today, but he hasn't. But Peter, thanks for stepping right in.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not atheist because I'm gay. I'm atheist for many other reasons, but I was raised Catholic. So I identify with Andy on very many levels.
Yeah, but I do too, which is
do.
crazy. Andy and I have more in common than Colleen and I sometimes, because, you would think the Catholic and the Christian were both Christians, but actually Andy and I have more in common sometimes. So funny.
Right. Do you guys know who Don Bacardi is?
I don't. I haven't.
I don't. I need to up my game on current events.
No,
I can't keep up with Colleen at all.
Yeah. No, me either. Thank you for that, Peter.
So Don Bacardi is, I think he's probably like 90 years old now, maybe. I heard the most beautiful interview with this man, though. So when he was 18, he fell in love with a famous writer. Don Bacardi is a very famous portrait artist. But at 18, he fell in love with a man who's like 20 years older than him. So back in that time, it's times of Rock Hudson, and he tells this story which really it was just so beautiful. So he was not married, he couldn't be married, but they went through all of this. He lived with this man who was a famous writer for like 30 years. The man passed away. He remarried somebody now. Just a beautiful, beautiful story. But they were asking him in this interview about his life in the early, I think it was the 40s, when being gay was illegal, which Stonewall, I mean, it's just amazing. 1969, it was illegal to be gay. It was illegal to congregate. And here comes the mafia, solving a problem, organized crime, solving a problem, giving them a safe harbor. And thankfully, because would Stonewall Inn have ever, would that, would it have been able to happen, right? If people didn't have a place to congregate and this problem wasn't solved. But this man tells this beautiful story about, that he was isolated as a young man, not having a home. He falls in love with this man, 20 years older. And when he fell in love with this man introduced him to a community that made him feel like he belonged. And when that happened, the rest of the world and the noise ceased to exist for him. He was strong enough and brave enough in that day, which I think is amazing, right? When it's illegal. In that day, he's strong enough and brave enough to be his true self. And James Lassane is the founder of the Trevor Project. If you have not watched his TEDx Broadway talk, watch it. It's so powerful. But now here's somebody, our contemporary, who he wanted to be an actor. He was told he was too gay for Hollywood. He was beat. He was sticks thrown at him, called every name. He's told to tone it down, change who he was if he wanted to be successful. And here he is today, the founder of the Trevor Project. And they are doing unbelievable work. And Peter, I'm going to shut up and let you talk about it, because I know this is a project that you're passionate about too. But the second leading cause of death in the United States for teens is suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And you're 3 or 4 times more likely if
Right.
you are of the LGBT community as a teen to commit suicide. But one thing that I learned from Peter and from James is that if you have one supportive adult in your life, just one, there's a 40% less chance that you're likely to commit suicide.
Mhm.
And that's what the Trevor Project does. Is that true, Peter? Did I
Yeah.
lead
Yep.
into that well?
Mhm.
Yeah. And you said something critical earlier that you probably didn't think was critical, but you used the word community, right? So a sense of community, because I've listened to all of your podcasts, so I understand that sense of community means something different to every person. For you, it's your churches, your community that you engage with in your spiritual development. For you, Colleen, it's also your work. You have your community of your work and the engagement you have with your fellow professionals and providing that service to people,
Baby, it's everything I
right?
do. My social life is a community. My work is a community.
Right.
My religion I believe in it.
So
Belonging is important to
but
me.
the difference of community versus cult from the conversation a couple weeks ago,
Mm.
community is everyone's equal. Cult is a power struggle, right? Because
Mhm.
when you have a community of
Uh,
people who are there to help support you, then no one's saying that I'm better than you or Colleen gives better advice than Allison because Colleen is higher up the food chain. It's everyone coming together to provide that level of support to lift everyone up at the same time.
That's right.
So
Saying
community,
oh,
so the
I
community
get
of
you.
LGBTQIA plus is important because it accepts everybody into the fold and says we're all equal in this space and we're going to try to help you become the best you that you can be, right? Whereas a cult is not that way. You're following blindly typically the leader
Mm.
or what their power struggle is for, what they want to become. So I think the word community is very important, and you used it probably not knowingly, knowing how important that word is. So and I
I
think that's
often
what the
think
Trevor
about
Project does, is it creates an online community, a resource community. It's not just online, but it gives people a place to go to get resources when they may not have those resources available to them, either in the school or at home or at church, because it still may not be the safest place to talk to someone.
I
Because
think
if
it's
I
called
go talk to
Trevor
my pastor,
Place. Mhm.
the
Sorry.
trevorproject.org.
Yeah, no, so, but I do think if you go to trevorproject.org, there's a section on there called Trevor Place, I believe.
I
I
don't
could be
remember,
wrong,
so and
but
I
go to
can't
the
pull it up right now.
website if you're
Yeah,
struggling with belonging and for whatever reason listening to this podcast,
yeah.
if you're struggling with that, they can help you find that community, which I think is beautiful.
So much more too. I mean, it helps you if you're struggling with identifying who you are. I mean, et cetera. They've covered all the bases. It is a safe place to go. And for people who aren't gay or any of
Right.
LGBTQIA, whatever, as a parent to understand your child better or a friend, they have the resources there for someone like me to educate myself more and not be ignorant. It's a good, safe,
Yeah.
educational place.
I wrote down some of the links that are available in their resources site. There's topics about LGBT youth suicide, information about conversion therapy, about mental health, about gender identity, pronouns, LGBTQ identities and religion as a resource. So, like you said, Allison, whether you're in the community or not, it's still where you can go to get information. And that's what we want people to do, is arm themselves with information, to read, to understand, to not just listen to sound bites or other people's opinions, and go get educated yourself. It's no different than learning about gun violence or politics. Do the work, and
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 not,
you'll
o-
become more educated.
and not only because listen, there's a lot of people out there who just don't understand. And I've heard, their comments. Now I can say to them, no, look at it this way, because they're not going to go to the website. They have their mind made up,
Mhm.
and I don't want to call them ignorant, even though I feel like there is an ignorance there, but I
Set in
can
their ways.
sorry.
Set in their ways.
Yeah, set in
That's a
their
nice
ways.
way to
But
say it.
but now I can say to them, hey, look at it like this, and maybe that could make a difference. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. You know, Part of my journey of coming out and why I didn't do it until I was 38 years old was I was scared to death, right? Of losing the life I had created, of losing the friendships I had made, of losing basically everything and having to start over, which included my family. So I think that if I had known a lot of this stuff in my youth and it had been available, if we actually had the internet back then, which we didn't have, that I might have come out at a much younger age and been brave enough to do so, and handle the reality of that decision for myself, and been able to educate those around me in a way that would have been positive as well. Because
Sorry,
I
I want to ask you this because you mentioned that you were afraid of what would happen when you came out. So was there a difference between 37 and 39?
no,
Did you lose what you were afraid of? I think that's what's really important.
I lost a few friendships. They just changed. And then there was a lot of stuff that went on at that same time. I got my divorce. I lost my job. I moved halfway across the country. So things changed everywhere.
Right.
It was called my mass transformation phase. But it's just interesting, and I didn't lose what I expected to happen, was because I grew up in a Catholic home in the 80s. And my parents said to me, and I've told this to my mother, I didn't get a chance to tell my father because he was already dead when I came out. I remember you saying to me as a kid, if you come home gay, don't come home. And that resonated with me for years. But I
got
also
come home pregnant, don't come home.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
Yeah. So I think
your
that
mom knew. Do you think your mom knew? Is that
no,
why
I
she
think
said
it
that?
I think it was
I knew.
who
I
Allison's
knew.
mom?
No, about Peter, your mom. Like, do you think what would inspire her to say that?
I think there was so much fear of AIDS in the 80s. It was, just coming up. I think that was truly fear-based. Like, I don't want to lose you, right? And I honestly think that if I had come out in my teens, I would be dead by now. I wouldn't have made the right choices. I probably would have made choices that led to illness and ultimate death. I honestly believe
Look at that
myself.
Look at that, how God protected you. Do you
That's
know
what you
I'm
believe.
saying?
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if, geez, maybe I'm overstepping my boundaries. Maybe this is ignorant, but I always thought Peter wasn't straight when in high school. I just thought he was.
Everyone in high school thought that, and then I proved them right.
And then when you got married, I was like, wow, I was wrong. And then you got divorced, and I was like, oh, I was right, but it doesn't matter either way to me. I just want you to have health and happiness. I still pray for you to know Jesus, though, because he's the.
Yeah. Well, keep praying on your own, but it has no effect on me. Roger prays for me too.
I had somebody write to us and say, you and Allie are awful pushy with this religion thing. You need to give Andy a break.
Yeah.
What?
I've gotten it. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, hello, you're listening, but it's a podcast called A Minister, a Catholic, and an Atheist. So, I mean, we're going to be a little pushy with it. And honestly, I gotta say, I don't think we are pushy. I think we're sharing, but pushy would be, you're going to hell, you're going to hell, you're going to hell. That's sin. That's sin. We don't do that.
And I'm going to come back and say, I'll see you there because you're not without sin yourself. So I'll see you in hell if that's where you believe we'll all be.
Peter, I think
everyone has sinned, regardless of whether you've been forgiven or not.
Yeah,
if that's what you believe.
I don't think that's how hell works, to be honest. I don't think that's how God works with hell. That's why again, those Westboro Baptists who and they give Christians a bad name. I don't like.
Have you ever been there?
They do.
Do you even know where the Westboro Baptist Church is headquartered?
I do. I can't remember now.
It's in Topeka. It's in Topeka, Kansas. And right across the street from the Westboro Baptist Church is the Equality House. It is a house painted like rainbows, and the house next door is painted in the transgender flag. And I have been there. I have a picture in front of it, and I have a picture of the Westboro Baptist complex. So yeah, it's crazy.
Hey, I need to ask you your opinion on this. Andy has expressed concern about politicizing of the LGBT organization, and he believes that many gay, lesbian people are stepping away from that organization because it's gotten too politicized. And
what organization?
He's saying, kind of that moniker of LGBTQIA. that he's feeling that there's, the movement has become too politicized and not really about what it was meant to be. Any thoughts on that?
I think it should become more politicized because of the fact that there is not equal legal protection across all the 50 states for every concept of life. So, for example, like I said before, I can be denied service in probably 30 states for being gay, but I can go eat at a restaurant in California or Florida or New York or Minnesota just fine, right?
Right.
That doesn't seem, that's a political issue because it's a
Right.
legal issue. There's also, I can be denied housing, I can be denied all sorts. I can be denied, I could have my rights as a parent removed because I legally adopted my children in one state, but they may not recognize it in another,
It's
right?
crazy.
That
But you
doesn't
know,
happen. That doesn't happen to straight people at all. There's not even a conversation that you could be
Right.
at risk of losing the rights to your children because you're straight.
I
And
should
that to
know
me is
this.
why it should be more political.
I
Mhm.
should know this, but are there lobbyists for the pride community or
I
LGBT?
should know that as well, but I don't. So,
Oh,
but I
there
do
has to
know,
be.
yeah, but I
There has
do know that there
to
are,
be.
political contributions made on behalf of companies. And there was an article I saw this week that said hiding behind rainbow flags, these companies' political donations don't match their support of LGBTQ issues. That was one of the things that brought Disney into the fold, was that their political contributions didn't match their support of their community, and then they tried to align that and match it up, and that's why they're being targeted by DeSantis. So it is political because they're making political contributions to get what they want from a business perspective, but they're not supporting fully the humanitarian aspect of their employees.
I heard that something really interesting. Somebody challenged in mainstream media, like television, are there any shows, like we have many shows that are led and kind of like the main characters, the leading characters are people of color, like of course white. Do we have a show where we have transgender folks who are the lead actors and characters
Yes.
and normal? It's not about their sexuality, but the show is just about them in real life. I mean, we had the L
So
Word, right?
so yeah, the show Pose on FX. It was only
Uh,
on for 3 seasons. It was about life in the 80s and the the house concept in the transgender scene. It's a very powerful series, and it does bring into the sexuality aspect, but it also brings in just normal life.
right.
People just trying to be their best selves. It is an excellent series.
Yeah, I
Fell in
think
love
the
with it from
question
the minute I saw it.
I think the question is having a series that I am not articulating this well. I'm so sorry. Having a series that is not about raising an issue, but like this is just normal life.
Right.
Like, instead of, it's not purposeful. It's not trying to be woke. It's just, hey, this is normal. Like, okay, this
Well,
this sitcom happens to star a transgender couple who's raising a kid, and it's not about them being transgender. It's and I think that's when mainstream really happens, right?
yeah.
When it stops being a woke issue and it becomes just another level of normality.
So I can't think of the name of the show right now. There's a half-hour comedy on. It's about siblings, and there's a rich brother, lesbian sister, and a writer brother. And I just can't remember the name of it right now. But it's just about general life. It's just about life in general of siblings interacting together and their families. And it's kind of like Modern Family, the same thing.
Hmm.
There's a part of that show that is just about life being normal as a gay couple raising a family, right?
Right,
It's not about the hypersexualization. It's just
right.
these are people going through their lives, their families accept them.
Hmm.
And I think we're seeing more and more of that in media as well as in TV shows, movies. It's not the focus, it's just
Hmm.
part of the story. And I think
Yeah.
that's your point, is that the more we see of that, the less aha, like they're shoving it down my throat,
Right.
aspect.
There's
So
this anti-wokeism movement going on right now, right? Like why like we just want to be entertained. We don't always want to be fed a message.
right.
And I wondered, like, I'd love your opinion on this. Like, are we hurting ourselves by being too woke?
I think
right?
I think we're hurting ourselves by using the term woke. I think that word needs to go away because it's stupid.
Well, can I just talk about PDA for a minute?
Yes.
Because I don't care if you're gay, straight, whatever. I don't want to see anybody mugging it up. I don't want to see them making out, and you know what I mean? Like, I don't care. Listen, I'm
Oh,
newly
wait,
divorced.
come on.
What's wrong with
Okay,
you?
You're against
no,
PDA? Is
let me tell
that's
you.
really what this is you're saying? No PDA in
No,
front of Allie
no,
Diverse.
it's kind of like, listen, I'm newly divorced, and well, not, but I've been seeing somebody for a while, and it's been going really, really, it's beautiful. And people have actually said, oh my God, you guys are nauseating, you know,
Oh,
and because, because it's new, and it's, like I'm feeding him, he's feeding me, he's kissing me, he's touching me. He's like, I love you, love you, love you. It's wonderful. And they're like, ew, you're like nauseating. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I guess like the PDA, but it doesn't matter to me whether it's straight or gay. I think that some people, though, they don't mind if it's straight people doing it, but it bothers them if it's gay
yeah,
people doing it.
yeah.
I gotta tell you, I
I
go into the city for a client once a week. And when I go into the city on 7th Avenue, I get off, the train station, I get out of Penn Station, I go down 7th Avenue, and there is this lesbian couple that I pass every single time I'm in there. I feel like it. And they meet on 7th, or they walk to 7th together, and then they go in different directions. But when they say goodbye, they might as well be in bed. Like they are, and I'm
Wow.
like, every time I look at them, I'm like, are they doing that for us or them?
so
Mm.
so my philosophy, which I've had my entire life because of my mother used to say this while we were at the beach, it was if they're showing, I'm looking.
I have to say this, and I don't know if we want to take it out or not, but I'm just going to say this. When Peter and I had lunch that time and we talked about your coming out and et cetera, being married and all that, I'll never forget this one line you said to me. You were like, everyone should have sex with a man. You're like, everyone should know what it's like to have sex with a man. And I was like, yeah.
I have to admit, like, I used to live in Boys Town in Chicago.
No,
Man, I love watching the parades. I loved at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, I mean, everybody was half dressed. I'm like, I've never seen more beautiful men in my life. I'm like, all I had to do was open my bedroom window and look out to the streets. I'm like, oh, this is the greatest place to live in America.
and you
I
probably
don't
felt
care if
safe,
they're not into me.
and you felt safe.
Yeah, I did. I actually did. Awesome. It also helped that I had an FBI agent that lived in my building.
Oh,
But you know what, Peter, whether it's you're Black in America at this moment, a woman in America, gay in America. I mean, I can honestly say as a woman, we've come so far, but I still have fear when I leave a ramp garage to walk, or if I'm walking in the dark to my car, like I still have my fears, and I
and
still
you
have
should.
in the
Unfortunately, you should.
workplace. That's what I'm saying. Like, so I think collectively, I don't want to compare my, let's say struggle necessarily, because my life is beautiful, but I still have things that I have fears with and, deal with as a woman. And again, they're not the same as what you go through or
Yeah.
somebody would say what the Black community goes through, but everybody, there's a saying you say, it says, you see my glory, but you don't know my story.
Yeah.
And
Well,
hopefully eventually people will know the story.
yeah, and you made reference to that the other week when you were talking about Amber Heard and whether that outcome would have a negative impact on women, and whether you're going to be taken seriously if something were to happen to you, and will people understand because of that situation. And I
Right.
totally agree with your point in that, because that's an isolated incident and it should be taken as such. It wasn't presented in a way that had a different outcome, right? That was the basis of it. But it doesn't diminish the fact that attacks happen all the time
Right.
on women for no reason, or attacks happen on transgender women all the time. They are at high risk of being murdered, especially if you're a Black transgender woman. So those are legitimate fears, in my opinion, that still need to be addressed. But your experience and my experience are not dissimilar, because I have never been attacked for being gay, but I recognize others have. So therefore, I have to be aware of that. And I also have to have that conversation with my kids to make them aware that something might get said to us, and it has been said to us when we've been at different events. You have to just walk past it, ignore it, or figure out whether you're going to address it. It's no different than what you go through as women. You have to
I'm
decide
gonna,
how to handle that situation.
Peter, I'm gonna disagree with you on that, because I think you, like Allison and I as women will go through, and there's this, yes, we're not as strong as a man. Yes, like there's sexual predators out there. But I will never forget, like, and it's just a couple months ago, being in the subway in New York City, and all of a sudden, with all the Asian hate crime that was happening, all of a sudden I looked up and down the subway, and we were waiting for the subway and the stand, and every person, there was several Asian people, and they were all pushed against the wall watching. And I said, you know what, there's a difference between this general fear of being attacked because you're weaker or because there's a sexual predator. that's that could be anybody, but there's an added fear when you're
I
being
hear you.
attacked for because of haters, because there are
I hear you.
haters.
Yeah.
There's not
Right.
many
Like,
women haters out there, right?
well, no, I think there are, but again, I hear what you're saying when you put it into perspective, the hate crimes in Connecticut just against Jewish people, just because they're Jewish. I hear you.
Right.
Like I said earlier, this woman was screaming at my brother just because he was a police officer. And I'm saying to myself, she doesn't even know him. Why is she being personal? Everybody feels so, but I hear what you're saying. It's a different level of fear. It's a different perspective. I get it.
And I don't
Yeah,
think we
and
can actually ever know what that feels like,
No,
right?
like, and I've said in the past, like my friend, she's Puerto Rican, she has two Black children. I will never understand what it's like to have two Black children or brown children or a brown husband for that matter, because again, I can't get it. Listen, I've gotten divorced. You can relate to me because you've gotten divorced, Peter. We get it. But until then, we really don't get it, what somebody's going through.
Did I tell the story about this woman who was with a colleague who happened to be Black at a bar?
No, but it sounds like a
So
joke is coming.
no, no, it's not a joke.
is there
It
a
was
rabbi
really
involved?
no. That
A
would be this
rabbi.
podcast. No, it was one of these moments that I thought, so we as we're cis women, white, like we don't have a lot of issues in the world. Maybe we don't get paid as much. We have to kind of fight to be at the table or be heard sometimes. But comparatively speaking, we live in this world where we are fair and we see everybody the same and we love everyone. So it's hard to really connect at a different level. And so anyway, this I was talking to this woman. She was on a business trip and there was a big group of them and they all went to the bar after. So they lined up around this bar all waiting to get their drinks to go, afterwards. And she happened to be in this position where she watched all of her colleagues being served, and this African American woman, one of her colleagues, trying to get the attention of the bartender. And the bartender would look at her and turn his head and completely ignore her over and over and over again. Everyone was served. This woman still was not served. More people came up to the bar. The bartender completely ignored this woman. So finally, she called her colleague over to her and she said, "Did I just see what I saw?" And she said, "This happens all the time." And so my
Mm,
friend ordered her drink for her and was really upset. So she goes home and she tells her son, she said, "I couldn't believe what I saw." And he said, "This is the problem." He said,
mm,
The rest of America doesn't really see what's happening." And I think that
mm,
applies to like I think it applies to the LGBTQI, just because we feel that everybody's equal. We see around us, we don't know many people who are beating or bashing or doing things nefariously to other cultures or people of different color skin or genders. Like because we don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I think
yeah,
we
I mean,
have to be open.
as a minister, like talking to different, I mean, I belong to a church of 45 different nations of people. So I've always seen it, like, gay Christians, Black, whatever. I've seen it in women. Like I've said before, I've seen, all of the hating. I have two questions for you, Peter. sports, a guy becomes a girl, should he be able to compete against other women? And bathrooms, should they be allowed to go in, say it's a male who becomes a female, should he be able to use female bathrooms?
Leah
Well,
Thomas, baby.
so I'll start with the bathroom issue. The answer is always yes, in my opinion, because people are not going into bathrooms to do what people think they're doing, except to go to the bathroom. And if there are no urinals in a women's restroom, and there are stalls, as I understand, and they're not just open without walls, what is the difference of them going to the bathroom in a women's restroom, right? People are not going in there to have attack and attack people. How many times have you been in a restroom, in a public restroom, a rest stop with 40 stalls, and seen someone walk in there to attack young children? It doesn't happen. Like, that's the fear and that's the story that is politicized, but that's not what's happening. People have to use the bathroom. They have to relieve their bladder or their colon, one or the other. So people just want to be able to use the bathroom and they need to be able to do that in a safe space. And I think it's a stupid argument that people make, because when your biology kicks in, you got to go. That's all you want to do.
Yeah, and then you're right. The argument is that other people who aren't transgender will use that and go in and be a predator to someone. That is the argument that people are saying.
Yeah.
I also think there's an argument that you're going to have some uncomfortable conversation with your child, or you don't want your child to see, or they're not ready for that conversation. I've heard that argument as well.
But I don't understand what the concept is. If someone presents themselves as a woman and goes into a bathroom to sit down at a toilet and use the facilities, are they displaying their genitalia? No, there's a door. Like, they're not being predators, right?
I always peek through the door, Peter. I want to see who's.
Well, then you're the predator.
I'm kidding.
Good answer, Peter. That was quick.
Hey, so I was thinking about this Leah Thomas thing, right?
Oh,
Go ahead,
yeah.
Peter. I want to hear your opinion.
So this is my opinion only. It's not, there's no other thing than my opinion.
Don't worry, Peter. You can say that here.
Yes, from what I understand, if someone is transgender, specifically male to female, because that seems to be the only issue that's ever discussed in sports, right? Then they are traditionally on some sort of blocker, or they're taking estrogen, and their testosterone level is perhaps at a different level than for lack of a better term, a normal male, right? Because that's what they're going through, this experience. If there are plenty of women, naturally born women, for lack of a better way of saying it, who are just as competitive, just as capable of competing on the same level as men. They just don't get the chance, but they are capable. I've seen CrossFit women who could kick my ass in a heartbeat, right? I've seen professional athletes who I would never, ever stack myself up against and say, look at them versus me. There's the full spectrum. There's very capable women who could compete at the male level. And there are also many men who could compete at the women's level, because it's just our way our bodies are developing or developed, right? I think it's another stupid argument because they just don't like it. And she has been proven, Leah, as an example, to lose. If they were winning every single competition and it seemed like they had an advantage, then yes, it might be a worthy argument, but they're not. They're not winning every competition, and they're not being put in there to say, oh, look, we're more powerful as a women's team now because we have transgender women on our team. They're just being accepted into the team as a member of the team, as a community, because they love the sport. Let them compete in the sport.
Somebody said nobody really cares until that transgender person starts winning. Can't be beat. But it's interesting. I had this group of high school kids. I have my little, I always put together these little focus groups every chance I get, and I asked them about Leah Thomas, and every single one of them, every single one, boys and girls, every single one said, no, it's not fair. Boys have a bigger, denser bone mass. They have different muscular build. it doesn't matter. Testosterone doesn't matter. They're built differently. It's not fair. Every single high school student. And it could be because of, I was surprised. I actually was really surprised. And I said, well, doesn't it
Because of the
matter?
cult
Because
mentality of what they're told.
I don't know, because this is a pretty, I mean, these are the same kids that are going to a school that don't, that they, that we were talking about before. They're in North Jersey. They, they are very acceptant of everything. They don't see, black and white. They don't see, um, gender equality. They just don't, it's kind of, this is life. But on that topic, they were all incredibly passionate. I was surprised.
So to ask a different question, why do we have separate men's and women's swimming when they're individual events? Why don't they just mix them together and make it co-ed and then get rid of the issue?
Well, I don't think,
Because why do you have to be a winner of the women's team versus a winner on the men's team?
that's a conversation, but you have to admit, men and women, I mean, it goes back to just like, I was raped when I was younger. I didn't stand a freaking chance physically, and I was in the best shape of my life. I was running 7 miles a day. It was real. I was like the best shape of my life. I was the strongest I ever was. I never thought I was at risk, and I did not stand a chance fighting against this man. So there is a physicality that is not disputable in my mind. But I do think there's some things that we say, right? They're like the lowering the testosterone. I don't know how I feel about it. I do think I am frustrated by this issue because it really comes down to people care when that transgender youth is winning. And that's where my frustration with the topic comes in. If we should have had a conversation a long time ago, if this was really an issue. I don't, I don't know how I feel about it, but I do know physicality wise, there is a difference. I don't know if testosterone plays into it, so I don't have an answer.
Well, on that note, we are
Yeah.
Sorry.
and no, that was really powerful. And thank you so much for sharing, Colleen, your personal experiences, and Peter, you as well. I really appreciate the both of you, your authenticity and your honesty, and what you give to this world. I appreciate both of you so much. You're amazing people. And I'm so happy that I know the both of you. We missed our Andy this week
I
because
know.
this little
Yeah, I was hoping to engage with him.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to be part of this conversation more than he did. He's
Yeah.
really he's really a great champion of people, and but he's
Yeah.
so smart too. I mean,
So smart.
ah,
So
kinda
He
smart.
know
keeps us on our
he knows a
toes.
lot of useless information. So,
He does.
And a lot of women will say to me, I think Andy's hot. Is he hot? I'm like, I can't really tell. I haven't met him in person, but I just go, yeah, he's hot. He's hot. So now they think he's really smart.
so can I make one last comment before
Yes.
we end? So the concept of coming out, I mentioned it earlier, right? It's typically associated with gay people. If you think in your life about your experiences, right? Colleen, you just came out. You admitted something about your truth, about your personality, about who you are as a person that has nothing to do with you being gay, right? Allison, earlier in this conversation and in other conversations, you came out and identified that you're a divorced woman, right? That's a coming out experience. Every time that you have to tell someone something personal about yourself, either in a work environment, on a podcast, at a restaurant, talking to the waiter, every single one of those conversations where you reveal something about yourself is a coming out experience. And that isn't just a gay thing, that's a human thing. We all come out. If I had cancer and told someone, that's a coming out experience. Women have to come out at work all the time and say, I'm pregnant, because they might be treated differently, knowing the fact that in 9 months they might not be there, right? That's a coming out experience that everyone in this world can relate to. So coming out isn't just a gay thing, it's a human thing. And I think if people start thinking about it that way, they will understand why it's so important for someone who's gay to come out. It's to reveal their true authentic self to someone else, to put that trust in someone else, and to be able to live their life to the best way that they can.
I love
That is
I
beautiful.
love that, but just taking it one step further, I always say when you do come out, put yourself out there, speak your truth, expect the haters to come out as well. And just be prepared for that, but speak your truth anyway.
I love this conversation about haters. It should be its own episode, right? Because do haters define you, right? How much do we do because we want to be a part of something, or how much don't we do because we're afraid of what a small group of people are going to say? Somebody just posted something on Facebook. It was something to the effect of, who cares if that one person doesn't like you? Remember the many that do.
I have the
Like,
title for it. I know the title for the podcast.
okay, what is it?
Are your haters woke?
There it is. Peter, I loved having you on this show. Thank you so much for challenging us. And I love that you're kind of out there trying to stir up our listeners. And I appreciate you so much. You're very valuable. And I'm so glad we had you today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And it was very nice to be a part of this. Anytime you want me back, I'll be glad to participate.
Hey, and everybody, please hit like, subscribe, all that stuff, like share it, share the video, put us on Facebook, put us on Instagram, like let people know we're out here. We really want to have a better, bigger conversation. And we really want people to know that it's about having great conversations that will change the world. Thank you, Peter. Allie.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
Love you, Allie.
Beautifully said. Love you guys. Talk to you guys soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.